Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation. We said yesterday that we might be going in studio for our show, but we decided after last night's loss that, you know what? Maybe they do something at, I don't know, 3 p.m., 3:05 p.m., the time that we'd be driving back through downtown Vancouver traffic, and it's a Friday, so everybody leaves work at 3 o'clock. We wouldn't have the same luxury of less traffic than we usually do when we leave at 3 o'clock on a weekday. It would have been a risky business because we can't do an emergency show. Before anyone asks, yes, we will be doing an emergency show if any trade is made. That being said, Harm, after last night's game, it feels like, and I feel like we've been saying this for a while, it feels like you need to do something bigger than just, I don't know, trading Niels Höglander. Making a small tweak to this roster and saying, there's our change, figure it out. Like this, to me, and I know I've said this for a while, but like I feel like there's going to be more people on board with it now. Like to me, this has to be a core piece that's moved. Has to be at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's just embarrassing the start that they had, right? Especially with the context of blowing that lead against the Buffalo Sabres, losing in regulation, and Rick Tocchet, after Wednesday's practice, was telling reporters how that loss against the Sabres was one of the most disappointing ones during his entire 2 years as head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, how he'd communicated that disappointment to the players and how he was curious to see what type of response they'd get. And for the Canucks, in a highly anticipated rematch against a divisional rival where there is some bad blood between the two teams, theoretically, the Canucks had every reason to be emotionally invested in that game. And that first period was frankly embarrassing. There was no fight. There was no urgency, no heart. It was as if the team no-showed because they're wanting change.
It was the please do something game. We saw that game with Bruce Boudreau. I would argue we saw it with Travis Green as well. This something that's going to happen isn't going to be firing the coach. I don't think it should be. I mean, I've said that for a while, but it really, really shouldn't be Rick Tocchet that is moved. Like, are we really going to get a fourth dead cat bounce? Or third, I guess. Third dead cat bounce for this core? This core sucks. Like, they need to change something about this core. Here's the thing. And I had someone on Twitter saying this to me, and I want to get into this. The New York Rangers are starting to figure it out. And we talked about this yesterday. But I had someone on Twitter talk about, oh, well, the Rangers have figured it out, so why can't the Canucks have it? Last season was an outlier for this core and for this team. And maybe we were wrong about why it happened. Again, we talked about, yeah, you made the right depth additions. And yes, management hasn't gone out and made the right moves, per se. But you cannot argue that this core just doesn't have any fight in it. When they get hit with adversity, they crumble. Like, that's what the real conversation is here, Harm. That season last year is an outlier for many, many years of this core not being able to get it done. And they've shown us who they are time and time again. Everybody but Quinn Hughes needs to be expendable on this roster. Absolutely. You need to be listening on everyone there. I don't even want to get into I would trade this guy, I would trade that guy. If you get a decent enough offer on anyone in this core, you need to make a move and you need to figure out where your franchise is going. Because I don't think you can sit there and say, you know what? That loss against the Oilers really makes me think they're about to figure it out. You can't. It's not possible.
They just don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. What have they shown that that is enough for people to look at and say, you know what, that this is only a few months of off hockey? No, it's not that. It's been 6 years where largely they have underwhelmed, where they've disappointed. And yeah, sure, in the tail end of the Jim Benning years, roster construction was absolutely the part of the issue where, okay, you could argue the core didn't have enough help around them, but I really don't think that's been the issue this season. Sure, the back end has depth concerns, and we saw that against the Oilers again. But ultimately, the core players themselves have not lived up to expectations. I mean, Elias Pettersson since last year's All-Star break. We're not talking about like a 20, 30 game sample at this point. We're talking about 80 plus games between those contests down the regular season, the playoffs, and nearly 50 games now where he's played like a second line center. JT Miller has been an up and down two-way player since he got to Vancouver, where he's alternated between playing like a superstar and playing like a 70 to 80 point producer whose defensive game can vary, and where oftentimes he can look like a passenger, right? So what's your confidence level that Miller can be a real like superstar level 1C? It's just Quinn's the only one that has consistently leveled his game up and has shown a level of professionalism, maturity, and elite level play that you need to build a consistent cup contender.
And is the biggest indictment, Harm, that they need a shakeup in this room? That Corey Perry slams Quinn Hughes to the ice, which it's annoying. I'm not gonna say I don't have a problem with it, because of course I do, but you know what I have a bigger problem with than Corey Perry, who's been doing this for like 35 years, longer than I've been alive. Corey Perry's been doing this crap. I don't want to say I don't have an issue with it, but are we surprised that Corey Perry body slammed Quinn Hughes to the ice? Goes after the smallest guy in the pile? No, do you know what I'm surprised about and actually kind of upset about? That nobody did anything after that. Oh, JT Miller talked to him. Did you see this? All over social media. Well, JT Miller talked to him. My bad. Okay, sorry, I didn't realize that. Mark Friedman went over, said something to him that was apparently worthy of a 10-minute misconduct. Teddy Bluger tried to do something. There's no fight in this team. Why is it Teddy Bluger? Mark Friedman's been here for 3 minutes, and he's in this conversation? Like, where is the fight in this team? And again, protecting your stars is one thing. I think that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing from the Canucks. I think there are fans that would go in and fight Corey Perry sooner than any Canuck on the ice did. That's embarrassing. Like, that's straight up, that's embarrassing. Not embarrassing for Quinn Hughes. Well, maybe it is a little bit embarrassing for Quinn Hughes that his teammates, when he's the only guy that's doing anything this season, won't go in and stick up for him. That it takes Teddy Bluger, as we see here on the YouTube live show, it takes Teddy Bluger to go in and drop the gloves with Corey Perry, who of course keeps his gloves on. That's embarrassing for the team. It absolutely is.
Yeah, I mean, respect to Bluger. He actually tried to do something, but
Yep.
You're down 3 goals in the third period. You know you're going to lose a game. There should, in my opinion, have still been more of a response there. Like, you can't let opposing teams think that they can get away with just taking cheap runs at Quinn Hughes, and that there's going to be a bare minimum type of response. I mean, even look at the Washington game with Luc Dubois. I didn't think the Canucks played Dubois hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
What music did Dubois have to face?
Yep.
For taking those runs at Quinn. So, yeah, I mean that's definitely part of the issue as well. And I mean, even going back to the LA game, yeah, like credit to Vinny Desharnais for fighting Tanner Jeannot, but did he even land a single punch?
If you're gonna give me a tall guy who can't really fight that well, this team misses Zadorov so much. Like, they miss Nikita Zadorov so much, Harman. I know you don't like talking about this.
They do miss him from that perspective.
They can't even move the puck. What are you talking about? Tell me what perspective they don't miss Nikita Zadorov. Please, enlighten me.
Well, we're talking relative to contract.
I don't care. 6 years at $5 million is going to look like nothing in a year when the salary cap goes to $100 million or whatever.
Let's not debate.
We don't. Again. You're right.
But you're right. Like, it is one thing I've thought about is you've got a bottom 4 defense that the average height must be 6'10", yet how physical are they actually? How mean and hard to play against are they actually? Does anybody actually fear them? Like, if you're going to be bad at hockey, like at least be tough and physical enough that you strike some fear into your opponents.
I'll tell you what these guys need is a little Chris Pronger highlight reel. Give him the old Nikita Triumkin experience. Play a Chris Pronger highlight reel and see what you get out of it. I forgot to do some business off the top, so I'm going to get to it now as we continue this riveting conversation here on Canucks Conversation, which is brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. Chat is bumping early, and I want to tell you about our Super Chat charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show? Hit us with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Chat is bumping early. Get your anyone else's in early. I want to hear from you. the first thing I see, I don't know how this happens, but my eyes immediately go to Broke Shinobi, who says, Dave is right. It's fun to see him like this. I think he's talking about me. I like that. Oh, and here you go. Adam Voth, regular listener to the show, Harm, seriously, dude? The cap? Again? The wasted salary on this team? I'd take Big Z. And I know that's not what you're saying, that, oh, no, you can't fit Nikita Zadorov in. And, of course, hindsight is 2020. I don't think when they didn't sign Zadorov, I know I wasn't coming on here and saying, no, this is a horrible, horrible move. There were some people, credit to those people. I was not one of them. It is revisionist history, and I'm fine with that. I'm not trying to take a victory lap. I am just making an observation that this team desperately misses Nikita Zadorov. But again, it was a bit out of their control in the end of the day, as we heard Zadorov earlier this week. We don't need to keep talking about Zadorov, Harm. Let's keep talking about this game. We've talked about the lack of fight, literally and figuratively. But one thing that also stood out to me in this game was just that the Oilers were without Connor McDavid. I've been saying for a while now that, yeah, Leon Draisaitl is going to win the Hart Trophy. That last night, yeah, I'll take a victory lap on that. Yeah, he's going to win the Hart Trophy. Absolutely he is. Best player on the ice all last night. That is what the Oilers look like without Connor McDavid. And I don't think there's people in our chat right now, because Canucks Convo listeners are so smart, but I did see all over social media last night the officiating. I was talking about this with our technical producer Jacob Lazar right before we went to air. If the officiating were different last night, it's maybe a 4-2, 5-2 loss. What are we talking about, really? Sure, the officiating wasn't great. I already touched on the 10-minute misconduct for Mark Friedman for saying something mean, it sounded like. The roughing call on Kiefer Sherwood, you could go up and down the list. But that being said, like, I don't think we need to spend any time talking about the officiating. I think the big thing when you talk about is this core and their lack of fight continuously.
Yeah, and I mean, even just look at their defensive breakdowns, right? The opening Hyman goal, it was an odd play where Draisaitl was deep in the defensive zone. There were two Canucks forecheckers trying to pressure him. And from deep in the Edmonton end, he flipped that backhand saucer, which initially looked like it was going to hit an Edmonton forward in the neutral zone. So Filip Hronek started to pinch towards the middle, but instead it ended up hitting Hyman all the way at the left offensive blue line. And so Hronek gets caught. And even after he got caught, it was way too easy, in my opinion, for Hyman to bulldoze his way to the net.
Yep.
You want to talk about Vinny Desharnais' return to Edmonton for the first time? It was disastrous. A hat trick of penalties. He was the one that twice failed to clear the zone and then took a cross-checking penalty, which led to, I believe it was Draisaitl's power play goal. Later, then in the second period, I think it was, running interference on Vasily Podkolzin, completely needless penalty there. The Oilers score again. He had an awful night, and they just had way too many defensive breakdowns. And we also have to, in my opinion, talk about Thatcher Demko, because we're at a point now where the Canucks on the season have an .881 team save percentage, second worst in the NHL. That's a big part of the team season as well, because it's essentially been a complete 180-degree flip, where last year the Canucks had some of the best goaltending in the league. Now they have some of the worst goaltending in the league.
And I mean, that's kind of what we were talking about before you came back was, well, the save percentage isn't great right now. Shelov's obviously hurt it. Kevin Lankin has started to slip up a little bit, but don't worry, Thatcher Demko's coming back. Hasn't been there yet. I've given my take on this a few times. Didn't like the first, third, or whatever goal Kasperi Kapanen scored, where Demko just punches it back to him. Like, that's brutal. Again, these aren't all on Demko, but that's three that I was just able to rattle off there. And you need more than that from your goaltender. But again, if Demko's on his game, Canucks maybe lose 3-2, 4-2. Like, I agree we have to talk about it. We do have to talk about it. But I don't know what the answer is what I'll say. And there's people trade Demko in the chat. I don't know if that's really a possibility. Yeah, I'd listen. I just said I'd listen on anyone not named Quinn Hughes. That being said, I do think that Demko is going to figure it out. I don't think this is a guy who's washed. Here's something that got brought up to me yesterday. Did you know Kevin Lankinen's older than Thatcher Demko? Like, let that sink in. before you talk about Lankinen 5 years at four. I mean, there was someone yesterday saying 1.5 million. I sign that every day of the week. But realistically, like 4 years at 4.5 to 5 million for Kevin Lankinen. Like, think about that. That Demko's older and how volatile this position is. I personally, and this is a personal opinion, and I could be wrong about it, but I'm pretty passionate about this. I don't think Demko's washed. I think he's going through an adjustment period. He's got to keep playing games. Lankinen obviously gets the next start. That's a no-brainer. But you keep playing Demko, and you let him try to figure it out. And I know it's frustrating, and I know it's troubling to watch a goaltender try to figure it out, but let him get his timing back. It was a long time off. He's had to do a lot of things with his recovery. My personal belief is that he'll bounce back. So I'm not going to have too much to add to this conversation other than the fact that, yeah, he's looked like doo-doo.
Why do you think he's looked off? Like, because you have a much more trained goalie eye than most of us do. What seems off with Demko right now?
It's a good question. I mean, everybody's going to say positioning, but like his positioning's been pretty good. His east-west movement's been pretty good. I think it's like a feel for the game thing. And I think it's hard to look at and say, yeah, he needs a feel for the game. I mean, the obvious ones are like, yeah, a shot from 30, 40 feet out beats him and he gets a piece of it. Like, those don't beat Thatcher Demko usually. And to me, that's a timing, that's a game situation thing. I think a lot of it just comes down to game situations, and he needs to start getting back into his rhythms and everything. Again, I don't know, like, I can't point to one thing. I've talked about the stance adjustment, but I don't think this is a guy that's just cooked. Like, I don't. And yeah, I mean, when you look at his game, what can he improve on? I don't know. Like, the big thing is I guess being ready for what's coming at him. Like, being ready for releases. I don't think he's reading those very well. I don't think he's reading pucks through traffic very well. And again, I think this all just comes down to he's got to start playing some more games. And I'm not saying Canucks need to play him next game. Like I said, it's a no-brainer to run Kevin Lankinen out there. But I don't know. Like, I think there are people, and there are people, and it's a fine opinion. And I'm not gonna say I agree with it, because I definitely don't. I just made it clear that I think he's going to bounce back. But like Irfan Shahid, he makes a fine point. This is the thing, this is my personal belief. I don't know what I would do if I was running this team, but this is what Irfan said about this. He said, why should we keep Demko? I don't get it. He's injury prone, David. He hasn't played a full season for a while now. We can't keep doing this. I will agree that if you can get anything of value for Thatcher Demko on the trade market, then sure. I would argue that this is a guy you're selling low on with a good chance to bounce back. Whereas when we talk about JT Miller, like, is JT Miller's trade value going to bounce back, Harm, at 32 years old? Is it going to get better than what it is today? And I think that's the difference between these conversations that we're having. Oh, almost swore. Hell, bring Elias Pettersson into this conversation. Is Elias Pettersson's value going to get better? Is Brock Besser's value going to get better ahead of the trade deadline? That's why I'm having these conversations about, okay, like, make a move. Make a move to move someone out of the core. And why I'm not focusing so much on trading Thatcher Demko is that of all those guys I just mentioned, I would say Thatcher Demko probably has the best chance of bouncing back, in my personal opinion. And yes, I almost dropped an F-bomb. Chat's going to have fun with that, but I haven't done that on this show. I don't think ever. So
interesting. I'm a little bit less bullish on Demko bouncing back. Not saying I don't think it can happen, but just confidence level, because goaltenders are so volatile, because he's had so many injuries in the past. It's just, even if he gets back on track, what's your confidence level that he can play 50 to 55 games next season and give you, let's say, like a 915 save percentage?
Higher than it is for Kevin Lankinen.
Sure. But I'm just saying in general, I fully get where you're coming from, but I can't help but be concerned.
Sure.
Put it this way. I have no idea what's going to happen with Demko moving forward. Right? There's a scenario where he bounces back, but there's another scenario where, let's say, he's starting to find his game and gets hurt again. There's another scenario where maybe he just never refines the type of form that he showed last season. We just have no idea what Thatcher Demko is going to be moving forward in my mind.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. I'm not trying to tell people that this is for sure going to happen. He's going to bounce back. I would say, like, if I was a betting man, I would put it on Demko bouncing back. I would. And I mean, there are real question marks about the injury, so I'm not sitting here saying I know better than everybody. I'm just telling you my personal opinion. This is a good point from Jacob in our private chat here. He said Demko's rebound control has been rough too. That's 100% a game speed slash feel issue. Like, I brought up the Kasperi Kapanen one. That just can't happen. Like, an NHL goaltender can't do that. Can't happen. Can't happen. And Demko knows that too. That's a feel thing. That's a feel thing. Dr. Haas in the chat noticed my drink. He said, Quads drinking too much Celsius. Got my energy drink going because I almost dropped the F-bomb. But another one in this chat here. And thank you to everybody in the chat. Make sure you leave a like on the video. We've got a lot of people here. Kevin Smeltzer Music here said, make a freaking move. But you can't trade good players for nothing. So, damn. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree with Kevin. I understand not wanting to move good players for nothing, but this proposed trade of Hedl, a first, and what was it, Ryan Lindgren for JC Miller? I think I brought this up last week, but like, does no one remember what the Canucks got for Bo Horvat? Like, that's a similar package in my mind. And I'm not saying it's phenomenal or whatever, but it's like I said earlier, is JT Miller's value getting better down the stretch? And this idea of, oh, you can't lose the trade, explain to me why. Explain to me why you're so worried about losing a trade, because I think this core is telling you, showing you, maybe not telling you, showing you that there's not much you could do to make things worse for this team right now. You worried about upsetting the apple cart? Are you worried about this team quitting on each other because there's a trade made from management to send a message? It's already happened. It's already happened, and I know the famous last words in Vancouver are, it can't get much worse, can it? Might be able to get worse. That's fine. But I think you make a trade, and I think you'd be surprised at how things turn around. And I'm not saying one specific player. I'm saying if you make a trade of a core piece and start to turn things in the direction that you want them to go, retool on the fly, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is that they want to do with this team, start that plan. Don't let this go on more. It's not going to turn around with this group. It's just not. They're not going to figure it out. It's not going to happen.
I think management is damned if they do, damned if they don't.
Yep.
Because I completely understand where you're coming from. It's so easy to look at the types of performances we've seen from this team over the last couple of games and over the last couple of weeks in general and say they have to make a move. And yeah, they're going to, before the deadline, they have to shake up the core in some way. But if we're saying do it now, this is unacceptable, this can't linger for any longer, there are a lot of people making that case. But if you're making that move right now, like, I'll be honest, this isn't even a case of, let's say, winning a trade. It's how badly are you losing that trade, right? Like, think about the reports that have come out around. Like, even you mentioned that Rangers proposal. That Rangers proposal, according to Frank, the Rangers wanted the Canucks to retain salary on JT Miller. Mm-hmm. What would the reaction in this market be if the Canucks made a trade with an underwhelming return and the Canucks are retaining salary on JT Miller? Market would explode. And that's why I think they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, because the assets that they're trying to move right now are underperforming. The Canucks are negotiating from a position of weakness. It's a really difficult, tough spot to be in. Ultimately, I think we all agree that something has to give before the deadline, no question. But for the people that are clamoring, why haven't they made a move yet? Why haven't they made a move yet? I think this is the worst possible position to try to be negotiating and making a trade from.
Okay, so does it get better? That's my question now. Does it get better? Does it get
close to the deadline? Yeah, it could get better.
It gets better.
Not
in what way?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, but in what way?
Teams are able to accrue more cap space, so they have more financial flexibility to take significant salaries on. Teams are closer to making, like, who's making trades right now?
Nobody.
And right, so the market hasn't even really started heating up yet. And I think that's not so much that your players are going to be so much more valuable at the deadline, as opposed to it's just easier to make a move closer to the deadline.
That's fair. That's fair. The one thing I will say is we have heard a lot of reports that teams are just waiting for the Canucks to trade JT Miller to kind of set the market. And I worry that if you wait too long, teams are going to say, you know what? I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. I'm going to trade for someone else. We don't need JT Miller. And again, there's people in the chat, and of course, thank you for listening to the show. But there are people in the chat saying, well, he's going to have more value in the offseason. I get it in principle that there are going to be more teams interested. I get it in principle. I understand what you're saying. We've talked about it all week about making a trade now, letting this new core get a chance to have a tail end of a season together and be ready for next year. To me, like, it's go time. You have to make a trade. And I don't want to just pick on JT because, like I said, there are a number of guys that you could trade right now. And, like, that's the thing, Harm. If the Canucks traded anyone right now, I don't think I would come out here and say, that's crazy. I can't believe they've done that. Except for Quinn Hughes. I would understand them trading anybody on this roster, not named Quinn Hughes, right now. And when we talk about value, right, I just look at it and say, I don't know how much better it's going to get ahead of the offseason. Like, if this goes on for months, like, we've already seen the reports that analytics departments are starting to tell the GMs that love JT Miller that, hey, you know what? Like, here are some flaws in this guy's game. And we've seen reports, I can't remember who they're from. I apologize. That's pushing teams away from JT Miller. Does that get better when teams start watching a little bit closer down the stretch run here?
Yeah, the longer this goes on, with how bad the vibes are turning, the more the pendulum starts to swing towards the danger of keeping your core together down the stretch with the idea that, okay, make a move in the summer when you might have more suitors, that the downside of that is greater than any potential upside you might get from there being a little bit more interest in the offseason. And again, this is we talked about it a couple of shows ago. I don't know what the perfect answer is. At that time, I wasn't sure because I do understand the idea of if you wait till the offseason, there's more cap space to go around. It is typically easier to move these big contracts. But like the vibes are just so bad right now. The vibes are so off, and it's increasingly becoming worrying as far as what impact that's going to have down the stretch and even related to the team's culture moving forward.
This one's from Dom B. And we'll read it now. We're going to get to anyone else later. He said, this is not a question of getting a good return for JT anymore. He wants out. It's affecting the team more and more. Just get whatever you can, free up salary, and restart in the offseason. Starting to get to that point. I'm certainly starting to get to that point. It's not all JT. It's not all on JT. But you have to trade a core piece, and if they decide that this is the one that they want to trade, then they have to do it. We lost Harman, but he's going to come back, I'm sure, at some point. I hope his laptop didn't just die because we were just about to start Family Feud. But while we wait for Harman, I want to thank you, everybody, for coming out to the Greta event last night, our watch party. We had a great time. I met awesome listeners of the show. I said to a few of them, speak up if you're in the YouTube chat. So far, I don't think I've seen anybody that was there last night, but we had a lot of regular listeners of the show at the event last night. We gave away some awesome prizes, raised some money for One Broken Biker, and ultimately had a great time at Greta. It was so much fun, and I got to tell you about Greta Bar YVR. They've got the street food menu, they've got the drinks, they've got the arcade games. Head on down to Greta Bar YVR. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Even if we're not there, which we are going to be throughout the season, you should be as well. You should be there even if we're not there. Harman did rage quit, it seems, hey?
No, so he just messaged our WhatsApp group. He said he got something caught in his throat and he's just been coughing like crazy. He has to go get some water and recover, so he'll be back in a minute.
That's crazy. Okay. Do you want to just start Family Feud if he's going to be back in a minute, Jacob?
Yeah, we can
I could do another ad read.
Yeah, I would assume he's going to go first, though, so
sure.
It wouldn't make sense to start.
All right, let's start anyone else, and we'll make Family Feud a part of anyone else, okay? Because we got a new sponsor for anyone else. Back by popular demand, back with us, Pacific Toyota Dealers. This segment, anyone else, is a presentation of Pacific Toyota Dealers who want to tell you about the Toyota BZ4Z. Not to be confused with the BZ4X. BZ4Z. No, BZ4Z. That's what I said. Okay, let me tell you about that. 100% electric, backed by peace of mind knowing it's a Toyota. The spark of joy you get when you pass a gas station knowing you don't have to stop. The added perk of being able to access HOV lanes when driving an EV, even when alone in the vehicle. If we had a BZ4Z at our disposal, Jacob, we might be in studio today. Because when you're flying down Highway 1, you can really get places if you're in the HOV lane. So, all electric, yeah, great vehicle. What you were able to do on a single charge with the vehicle, you could do all sorts of stuff with that vehicle. You could have an emergency episode if you needed to. You could be in studio. Can you tell this is a new ad read? That isn't quite
a new ad read, and it came way sooner than we thought it was going to. But yeah.
Shout out to Toyota. We love having them aboard. Toyota Pacific dealers. This vehicle can handle any terrain, so it can take you from the city to the slopes or wherever life takes you when you choose the BZ4Z. Or is it the BZ4X? This read has two different things. It might be the BZ4X.
Our graphic said BZ4X. Very sorry to
Beautiful.
Toyota.
I don't know if
this
this
will be cleaned up next week.
All right, you can get up to $12,500 in rebates and incentives, and you can finance a 2025. This reads all over the place. BZ4X from 0.19% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. Is Harman back yet? There he is. Okay, you good?
I hope so. I'm fighting off the flu, and I just had something caught in my throat and was coughing nonstop for the last 3 minutes.
All right, you're good. You missed me accidentally creating a new vehicle because my ad read said BZ4Z, but it's the BZ4X, which is what we've advertised before. Happy to have the BZ4X back. Let's get to Family Feud, backed by popular demand. Unplugged 604 says it's their favorite segment, so let's get into it. Family Feud, take it away, technical producer Jacob Lazar.
I'm your man, Jacob Lazar, and we're back for another edition of Canucks Conversation Family Feud. All right, Harm, you're going to go first, and hopefully we can get through this without any more issues here. I know, obviously, you had to leave us for a minute, and Quads did his absolute best to stall, and I see he's now muted. Quads, hopefully he has turned us off. He can't hear us. Harman, you were not here last week. Quads and Jeff put a good performance forward, but couldn't quite pull it out. I know you had some harsh words for me on the show yesterday about my Family Feud questions.
Wait. Sorry. I'm sure you're talking right now. Was I not supposed to go first?
I don't know. Did you?
You can go first if you want.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Didn't we start winning when I was going first?
I think we've been losing either way.
Let me go first.
Okay.
You haven't started questions, right? It's not too late?
No. I was just doing my spiel.
Chat got me aware of it quickly. They said Harman going first seems like a mistake. We're going to go. Well, let's go. Me first.
I don't know.
Okay.
Harman wasn't here last week. Everything's gone crazy. I don't remember what.
I'm taking my headphones out. You guys
Attaboy.
signal to me when you're done.
Sounds good, Harman.
Love it.
Yeah. This has just been. This is why we don't do Family Feud on Fridays. Everything's just all over the place right now. Anyways, Quads, you're gonna go first. You'll have 25 seconds on the clock. If you can't think of an answer, say pass. We'll come back to it at the end. David Quadrelli, are you ready?
Of course.
Which NHL city that has lost a franchise is most likely to get one back in the future?
Atlanta.
Name an underrated Canuck from the dead puck era, 95 to 04.
Pass.
Name an iconic former Canuck media member.
Tony Gallagher.
Name a player from the inaugural Canucks.
Orland Kurtenbach.
Name a well-liked former coach of the Canucks.
Alain Vigneault.
Name an underrated Canuck from the dead puck era.
McGillney.
Beat the buzzer. All right, get Harm's attention. I will tally up your points.
Googling when Alex McGillney actually played for the Canucks. Harm, you're good to come back. Oh, I just got the number one answer. I literally got the years to the... Okay, and Harman can hear me now, so I'm not going to keep talking. I think I just crushed it. Harman, you don't even have to go, I think. I think I got 240 points there, probably. Jacob, tell me if I got 240 points, but it feels like it. Certainly feels like it.
You did well, but not quite as well as you thought you did. You got 113, so off to a good start.
Boom.
And we'll see. Harman only now needs, what do we need? 87 points for the win. I like your chances there, Harm.
All right.
I'll remind you again of the rules. You'll have 30 seconds on the clock. If you give one of Quad's answers, you'll hear the buzzer, and I will ask you to try again. If you can't think of an answer, say pass. We'll come back to it at the end. Quad's had to do that, and it's a good thing he did because he was able to circle back and actually pick up an answer. All right, Harm, are you ready?
Yep.
Your time will begin when I finish reading the first question. Which NHL city that has lost a franchise is most likely to get one back in the future?
Arizona.
Name an underrated Canuck from the dead puck era, 95 to 04.
McGillney.
Try again.
Jovo.
Name an iconic former Canucks media member.
Jason Botchford.
Name a player from the inaugural Canucks.
Orland Kurtenbach.
Try again.
Dale Talon.
Name a well-liked former Canucks coach.
Bruce Boudreau.
Good work. Got in right at the end.
Nice.
Harm, I think your mic, I saw your mic disconnected and it muted at the beginning. So if you didn't get that answer off, I would have let you still answer. That's,
Yeah, Harman crushed that. We just won. You don't even need to tally it up. Give us the
Well,
win.
no, we are.
Let's not take victory laps.
We are going to tally it up. Harm, also, I think you are still on your webcam mic, but you can figure that. You can fix that in the background here as we go through.
Nick Poshek of my instant victory lap pointing out that I immediately, after answering my final question, yelled, "Yep, we just won." Instant victory lap. You don't see that all the time, but we won for sure.
All right, so let's work through here. You needed 87 points, Harm. Your first answer, city that's lost a franchise, most likely to get one back. You said Arizona. Phoenix was what we had on the list. That was 30 points. That was the number 2 answer. Quads had the number 1 answer with Atlanta with 39 points.
Let's go.
Quebec City was the number 3. Kansas City was the number 4. The Scouts existed for a few years back, I believe in the late 70s or early 80s. Name an underrated Canuck from the dead puck era. Quads, McGillney was not the number 1 answer. He was the number 3 answer.
Oh, so people are wrong. Okay, who's number 1?
Harman's answer of Ed Jovanovski was the number 1 answer.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry. What era? What did you say?
The dead puck era, 95-ish to 04. So between the lockouts, essentially.
I thought you were... Okay. Yeah, good answer. Good answer, Harm.
Yeah. I think McGillney is underrated, but I feel like he's so talked about as being underrated now that people kind of just rate him, right?
Sure.
All right, former Canuck media member, an iconic former Canuck media member. Quads, you said Liam Gallagher? Or Tony Gallagher?
Tony Gallagher,
Tony Gallagher, only 3 points for Tony.
Really?
That's brutal.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
That's unlucky, man. That's a good answer.
Harman hit the number 1 answer, though, with Jason Botchford.
Attaboy.
So, obviously we just had the Botchford project. So,
Who else was on that list? People are bringing up Don Taylor. Don Taylor still works, folks.
So, first off, one person answered David Quadrelli as a former media member, and I got a really good laugh out of that. Like, what is that person insinuating? Jim Houston got a lot of love. Cheech obviously got a lot of love as well. There were some votes for Larscheid in there.
Okay.
There were
number
some
1?
good answers. Number
Botch.
1 answer
Okay.
was Botch.
How many points?
23 points.
Okay,
for Jason
attaboy.
Botchford.
Okay.
So that brings your team total up to 181 with 2 votes
Okay.
or 2 questions to go.
Okay.
A player from the inaugural Canucks, Orland Kurtenbach was the number 2 answer. Dale Talon was the number 3 answer. Number 1 answer is Pat Quinn.
Oh, okay.
Now, the good news is Dale Talon got you 20 points, which means you're already up to 200.
Let's go.
So you guys
Finally.
do pick up the win. I will go through the last question. A well-liked former Canucks coach. AV was the number 1 answer. Bruce Boudreau was the number 3 answer for 15. You guys got to 216 total. Very good showing. I told you guys yesterday, like, come on, you're going to have no problem with this one.
Pat Quinn was number 2 for coach, right?
Pat Quinn was number 2 for coach. So that's, and I eliminated, there was another question that I may be saving for a future week that Pat Quinn also appeared in. So he was a very popular answer.
Okay.
Next week's survey is in the description, by the way.
Yep. Fill that survey out quick, folks. We want to have our responses quick. We haven't had to post on social media, which is great. Which is really nice.
Yes. I saw someone here, regular listener, Brimpy Spingle? I've never actually had to say Brimpy's name. Mark Crawford, I'm assuming is who you're referring to. He did pick up some votes. Actually, that question was really funny. There was votes for Torts in there. Rick Bowness got some votes. He was
How
only
many
ever an
did Talkett
assistant coach.
get? How many did Talkett get?
Well, none because it said former coach.
Oh,
and
okay,
Talkett
okay,
is
okay.
still employed. But
Okay.
yeah, there were some interesting ones in there. Roger Nielsen got some as well. We mentioned him on the show this week, so that's why I was pretty happy with this question. You know, a few of these questions very topical, obviously with Botchford, with Roger Nielsen from our conversation about penalties and throwing extra guys out from earlier in the week. So yes, very good work. Harman and Quads, very good work from the chat and everyone who filled out the survey.
Beautiful. Loved it. All right, fill out the survey for next week. Let's get into anyone else. Harm, you missed all my ad reads. One of them did not go very well. You know what? I want to fix this. I just want to fix this real quick. Shout out to Toyota. They just came back aboard, and I hit them with probably the worst ad read in Canucks Conversation history. Big shout out to Toyota with the 2024 BZ4X. 0.19% APR for 36 months on the financing there. Get up to $12,500 in rebates and incentives. Book your test drive today. Check them out. Shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. We thank them for coming on the show and hope they're here with us tomorrow based on how awful that first ad read was. I apologize. But anyways, let's get into it. Let's get into anyone else. Let's see what people want to talk about. Max1 asked this, Harm. And I'm not even going to really expand on this because I've been saying this for a while and I've been talking about getting the vibes fixed before the end of this season. Max1 said, is it crazy to say sell at the deadline in hopes of developing a really good team a year or two from now? I don't think it's crazy. I'm going to expand on that, Harn. Right after saying, no, I'm not going to expand. Let me expand. When we talk about where this team's at, and there was someone earlier saying if you trade someone from this team, if you trade Brock Besser, if you trade JT Miller, this team is a lottery team. They're on pace to be a lottery team right now. They're out of a playoff spot right now. And I know what you're saying is that you're looking at a bottom 5 finish. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but that's not the avenue that I'm going. I think if you make a trade of this core, I think you're going to get some sort of response and bounce back from this team. Like, Philip Hedl, I know he's not a bona fide top 6 center, but like, he's not awful. And I don't just want to focus on Hedl. I'm just saying that if they're not making trades for straight futures, the guys that they trade for are going to come in. Like, Ryan Lindgren's this team's 3rd best defenseman, 2nd best based on how Philip Heroic's played since he got back. Like, Ryan Lindgren's the 2nd best defenseman on this team if they make a trade for Ryan Lindgren. Absolutely. Like, you're improving your team. The addition by subtraction argument always gets brought up. This idea that, if you trade Brock Besser, obviously you're getting back something that's just going to absolutely hurt your chances. I'm sorry, but this team right now is pacing to be a horrible lottery team right now, and I don't see it getting better, and that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that can be gained just by fixing the team's vibes, right? And being focused. Yeah. Imagine being a player in that dressing room right now when you're probably waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're waiting for that big change to take place. And I mean, it's not unheard of, the idea of go back to the Nashville Predators. I think it was at the 2023 trade deadline when they sold Matthias Ekholm, Tanner Jeannot, Mikhail Granlund, and I believe there was another player. Basically, they had a major sell-off. They collected tons of draft picks. It was clearly, all right, Nashville is kind of waving the white flag on this season. They ended up calling up some players from the minors, and they, like, everybody thought, they're going to fall off and they're going to have a miserable sort of stretch drive run. And instead, they actually had a brilliant record down the stretch and nearly made the playoffs. And again, that was from a position where they were well below the playoff bar when they were selling, whereas the Canucks are still around the playoff bar.
Yep, absolutely. I want to play this audio from Brock Besser last night. Post game. He's sad. Brock Besser was sad, but something he touched on, and Jacob, we're going to play this, something he touched on was standing up for each other and sticking up for each other and being good teammates. Let's play this clip, Jacob.
Everyone needs to go home and take a look in the mirror and like I said, I mean, we just got to dig deep, and it's all about mindset. It's all about working hard. It's about sticking together, being a good teammate, sticking up for each other, and then we'll go from there.
We'll go from there. This isn't on Brock Besser. It's not. But that performance last night, and not just from Brock Besser. Like, Brock Besser wasn't great last night. Wasn't good. Hasn't been good for a while now. But that was a performance from a team that does just look like they're just waiting to see what happens next. And they're asking for something to happen next. And you got to give it to them, in my mind. We're almost done the show today, which means it's 2:45 p.m., which means that a trade might happen in 15 minutes. So as we get ready to close out today's show, I might see you in 15 minutes. I might see you tomorrow. We might see you tomorrow. We might see you in 15 minutes. We'll be ready if something happens. But I'm of the opinion, even if it affects my weekend plans, that something needs to happen soon. Something needs to happen soon, in my mind. I was going to preview tomorrow's game. What would you like to say about the game tomorrow, Harm? I don't think the answer is much.
Yeah, it's not even, I can't even rile myself up to be like, oh, they need a response. I'm so curious to see how they respond. I'm not really that curious to see how they respond, to be totally honest. Whether they come out of the gates flying, whether they don't come out of the gates flying, the confidence level in this group is just shot. Now, of course, it does. It would be nice if they showed a little bit of fight, right? It'd be embarrassing if they have another stinker in the first period. I mean, how many? It's in the last week and a half, they've gone down 3-0 in the first period, 3 separate times against Winnipeg, against LA, against Edmonton. So yeah, I mean, if they do it again, it's embarrassing, but I'm not going to take the game against Washington, whether they play really well or whether they play really poorly, as any indication of where this team is at, big picture. At this point, I'm just hoping the players have some individual pride, that they have some, like, play for Quinn Hughes. If for nothing else, play for your captain, who's done literally everything in his power on the ice, off the ice, to will your team. Quinn Hughes deserves better than this. And
they've got Pierre-Luc Dubois coming in tomorrow. Don't make Caps fans tweet at me again. Like, stick up for your captain a little bit. Again, you brought it up earlier in the show, the whole Dubois-Hughes thing. There was no response. No response. Have a little pride. That's the message to the Canucks. That's what we all want to see. Have a little pride. Okay, here's another thing. And I know we got to wrap up. I get it. Does it just feel like none of these guys really care about being Canucks or playing in Vancouver? Have any sort of pride? Except for Quinn Hughes? Like we always say, whenever we criticize the team, it always comes to the caveat of, except for Quinn Hughes. Who really likes being a Canuck, and not just says they like being Canucks, but shows it with how they play and care about the crest on the front? We've had guys for years that were like that cared about being a Canuck and showed it on a nightly basis. And I don't know how many we have on this team right now.
I don't want to speculate about that necessarily, because you don't know the player's mindset, but what we can tell just watching them play is the level of buy-in and competitiveness just hasn't been anywhere close to where it was last year.
Yeah. Then I think that's because they don't really care. That's the other thing. If we're talking about, that was a performance asking for change. Okay, what change do they want? It's on a new coach. You're not getting that. You shouldn't get that. So, like, what is it? What is it that we're looking for? Enlighten me. And I know you don't know the answer, but it's very frustrating. It's just very frustrating to watch. And yeah, you're right. Maybe they do care, but they're certainly not showing it on the ice. And that's all fans really care about. Home fans, you lay an egg every time you step on home ice, basically, this season. Like, we've talked about how a lot of these performances just come down to will and those staples and that buy-in. You either care or you don't. That's what it comes down to, in my mind. And Brian Wirch in the chat saying Lankinen cares. Fair enough. I'll give you that. Lankinen cares. That's a really good comment. Sherwood also. Sherwood cares. Hughes cares.
Yeah, I was going to mention, too bad as well Sherwood left last night's game mid-game and didn't return.
Okay, now I was at the watch party, and I got to be honest, I found that out this morning that he didn't return. Do we have any sort of update on Sherwood? Is he going to be out? Like, what's going on?
I haven't seen anything around that yet.
Soggy Bill in the chat, great name, said, you know who likes it in Vancouver? Petey. When I say guys who tell you they like playing versus showing you they like playing in Vancouver, Petey's a part of that conversation. Petey's a part of that conversation. It's great. It's great that he said he wants to play in Vancouver and that he likes being in Vancouver. That's what I'm getting at, though, is okay. Now show it on a nightly basis. Show it with some consistency. That's what you want to see. And hey, like, credit to Petey. He's got the two-way game down pat. And he's trusting that that's going to result in offense, which is fine. But at the end of the day, it's still points that you need from your top-line center. And he hasn't played like that this year. You just brought up the full calendar year now that it's been. They need him to figure it out. They need a lot of things to turn around. I'm at the point now where you have to trade a core piece. And I've said it a few times during this show. Anything you want to get to here, Harm?
No, not really.
Okay. Let's get to our Bet365 Bet of the Day, which is brought to you by Bet365. Also, lots of love for Toyota in the chat today. Really good. Really good. Vyastaran in the chat said, where'd it go? He said the T in JT Miller stands for the Toyota Tacoma. All right, let's get to our Bet365 Bet of the Day, which is brought to you by, you guessed it, Bet365. I got it right yesterday with the underdog pick, didn't I, Jacob?
I can't remember. Who did you pick yesterday?
No idea. This is your job.
Didn't you pick a slight favorite?
Yes. But no. Didn't I pick an underdog? No, I picked the Sabres, right? Over
Oh
the
yeah,
Flames.
you flipped you changed your mind.
Oh, Flames won. Okay, so I lost. Flames won 5-2.
That's right, because I remember we were looking at that. Wasn't that like 2 days ago? I don't know. I am so out of it right now. We'll figure it out. Happy Friday, everyone.
Okay, this is from Kevin Woodley on Canucks Talk today. Woodley said the goalie coaching community reached out and said Demko's name is out there on the trade market. His name has been part of the conversations, particularly with Carolina. All right, I don't even know what to do now. Like, just never a dull moment with this team. We will see what happens. I don't even want to dive down the conversation of trading Demko. Look, I said it earlier. If they trade anybody on this team, I won't be surprised. I am a little surprised to hear Demko's name get reported, especially by someone like Woodley, who is obviously in the know. So, we will see. We will see what happens. But yeah, someone in the chat brought that up, so I wanted to at least bring it up. Brimpy Shingle said, unfortunately, that is incorrect about JT Miller's name being the Toyota Tacoma. His legal name is Jiller Tiller Miller. Ready to close out, Harm?
Yeah, I was not ready for that punchline.
I mean, Quads, you promised everyone we would have fun today.
We always have fun. Always have fun. Okay. Kelly Canuck bringing up a good point about the
Yeah, how was the watch party yesterday?
Fantastic. Smiley hellos in the chat. I already talked about this while you were gone. That was one of the things we did while we stalled, but it was fantastic. It was awesome. We sold like 130 tickets. It was unreal. We had so much fun. Smiley hello, who I met yesterday, said, hello, Quads. Nice to meet you and Jacob last night. Yeah, we met some listeners of the show. It was so great to meet everybody. It was just a great time. It was a great
proposal for next time. There should be discounted shots for every goal against the Canucks surrender.
I like it.
We don't want to put our sponsor out of business, though, Harm.
Yeah, that's
discounted. I didn't say free.
Well, how much does that discount go down for every shot on goal?
I said goal for every goal against, not every shot against.
Oh. Yes, okay.
But, I mean, even every goal against at this point, if you're discounting shots 6+ times a night, that's...
Maybe we could take it down 10 cents. Owner Quads.
I mean, I feel like the way the team's playing these days, that's 5-6 shots might be what fans need for the product to look halfway decent, to look watchable.
All right, let's go. Bet365 bet of the day. I gotta be smart here, which is why I'm taking the Philadelphia Flyers to beat the New York Islanders. Yeah, let's do that. No, okay. I can't second guess myself. That's part of the problem. Plus 130 on the money line. Flyers, Islanders. Islanders are the favorite in that game, but I'm taking the Flyers. The Flyers tonight. They played last night. I'm taking the Flyers tonight against the New York Islanders. Plus 130 on the money line. That was our Bet365 bet of the day. Brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. Chat was bumping today. Thanks so much to everybody for watching. Make sure you subscribe, hit like. If you're listening on podcast, we thank you as well. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more than you realize. So, yeah, thanks so much for listening today. Maybe we'll be back in a few minutes. I don't know. We'll see if there's a trade that comes down the pipe. We'll be ready to go if so. But for now, signing off for my co-host Harman Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar. My name is Dave Wajrelli. Thanks so much for listening to the episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.